The strongest people never seek revenge, and the desire for it is actually poisoning your soul. Every time you fantasize about retaliation, you feel a fire in your chest that promises justice, but it leaves you hollow, restless, and secretly weaker than before. Ancient alchemists and modern mystics alike have warned that revenge doesn't strike your enemy, it siphons your own life force, embedding shadows deep within your spirit. By the end of this video, you'll see why releasing revenge is the ultimate power move, and how redirecting that energy can transform your life instead of consuming it. Revenge often begins as a whisper, almost imperceptible, as a fleeting thought that flits through the mind and lingers longer than it should. A slight injustice, a betrayal, a careless word, these seemingly small events plant seeds that take root in the subconscious. At first, it feels harmless, almost natural, the way water runs through a stream. But these seeds, left unchecked, begin to grow in secret, twisting and branching into a network of obsession and fixation. The mind, once a sanctuary of clarity, slowly becomes a battlefield where resentment takes the lead. It is not merely the act of someone harming you that creates this darkness. It is the subtle, unseen energy that you begin to invest in that harm, the attention you give it, the mental weight that accumulates with every thought circling back to the injury. As revenge becomes a quiet companion, it reshapes perception. Days begin to feel longer, as if time itself stretches to accommodate the repetitive cycles of rumination. The mind fixates on past events with a meticulousness that feels almost compulsive. The wounds, even if healed on the surface, are endlessly reopened by the replaying of imagined scenarios, by the rehearsed retelling of slights and betrayals. Life itself starts to slow, filtered through a lens of resentment, as if the universe conspires to present endless reminders of the original injustice. What was once a momentary lapse now feels like a weight pressing down on every action, every decision. Revenge does not merely steal your attention, it siphons vitality from your body and spirit. Philosophers and mystics have long observed that negative emotions, particularly those tied to personal grievance, consume far more energy than one realizes. It is a hidden tax, levied silently, gradually eroding the capacity for joy, creativity, and insight. The more one clings to resentment, the more the internal landscape becomes distorted. Shadows stretch unnaturally, thoughts grow entangled with old hurts, and the soul begins to bear the imprint of unprocessed anger. Even moments that should feel light and spontaneous are tainted by a subtle tension, a lingering anxiety, a quiet hunger for validation or retribution. This energy drain has tangible consequences. Opportunities for growth, for connection, for clarity slip quietly through your fingers because the mind and spirit are no longer fully available. Decisions are influenced not by present reality, but by a compulsion to balance scores, to right perceived wrongs. It becomes increasingly difficult to distinguish between genuine desire and the echoes of past injuries, between actions inspired by insight and those driven by the lure of retaliation. The outer world, in effect, becomes a mirror of the inner turbulence. People who seek revenge often find themselves trapped in cycles of confrontation, repeated conflicts, and relational strain, each act of retaliation reinforcing the habit of surrendering power to anger. Yet this transformation is rarely obvious at first. It is subtle, gradual, almost imperceptible. A moment of irritation here, a grudge held there, until the entire inner landscape is quietly reshaped into a reflection of bitterness and unrest. And this is the insidious cost. Not the immediate pain of the original injury, but the slow, almost invisible erosion of one's own life force. What begins as a desire to correct wrongs ultimately becomes a self-imposed imprisonment, where the walls are constructed not of stone or metal, but of thought patterns, of energy flows diverted into shadow. Understanding this cost requires reflection, a willingness to observe the way energy is spent in the mind and body. The human spirit, when invested in the pursuit of revenge, becomes like a garden overrun with weeds, choking out the potential for growth, creativity, and beauty. The more attention given to resentment, the less is available for cultivating inner peace, for building meaningful experiences, for connecting with the deeper currents of life that offer genuine satisfaction. And yet, within this understanding lies the first glimmer of liberation. The recognition that the darkness is not an external force imposed upon you, but a construct born of your own participation, a shadow created from the attention, energy, and time you have willingly surrendered. The path to transcendence begins here, in awareness. By seeing the invisible cost of revenge, the time lost, the energy drained, the vitality surrendered, you begin to reclaim what was always yours. The ability to direct your focus, your energy, your consciousness toward life instead of conflict. It is in this recognition that the mind opens to the possibility of transformation, the soul begins to remember its innate power, and the heart starts to release the weight it has been carrying. You might believe that revenge is a form of resolution, a necessary step to restore balance in your life, but this belief is an illusion carefully woven by the mind. It promises satisfaction, yet the moment you pursue it, you step into a hidden economy of energy, one where each act, each thought, each intention you direct outward in retaliation quietly siphons your own vitality. At first, this seems negligible, almost imperceptible. A small injustice has been done, and the mind whispers that you have the right, even the duty, to respond. But the more attention and planning you give to this response, the more subtle and insidious the cost becomes. Consider the mechanics of this invisible drain. Thoughts that could have been dedicated to growth, creativity, or connection are now invested in strategy, anticipation, and the mental replay of perceived wrongs. Emotions, once fluid and expansive, are contracted into a tight spiral of focus that moves only in one direction, toward the imagined resolution of injury. Even the body feels it. Tension gathers in muscles, the heart beats faster, the breath shortens, and a restless energy courses beneath the skin. The energy you believe is building toward triumph is in truth evaporating before it ever reaches its intended target. And then there is the moment you thought would bring satisfaction, the imagined confrontation, the act of retribution, the acknowledgement of your victory. It arrives often not as a climactic release, but as a muted, fleeting, strangely hollow sensation. The sense of justice, the moment of supposed balance restored, is brief and unsatisfying. Why? Because in the pursuit, you have already surrendered more than you have gained. The act of revenge, rather than delivering fulfillment, completes a cycle of self-consumption, leaving a subtle emptiness in its wake. You may win externally, yet internally you are diminished. The most profound realization emerges when you ask yourself, was this about them, or was it always about the quiet unraveling occurring within you? Often, the target of your anger becomes irrelevant. What consumes your attention, what drains your life force, is not the wrongdoing itself, but the internalization of it. The mind loops endlessly through the original incident, amplifying it, replaying it with imagined variations, creating consequences that never existed outside the imagination. The person you intended to punish becomes, in a sense, irrelevant, while the shadow that grows within you becomes permanent. This tension creates a unique friction in consciousness, a subtle bending of perception. Reality begins to feel distorted, colored by an unseen internal gravity pulling toward negativity. Time slows, clarity diminishes, and a strange obsession forms. The mind becomes convinced that satisfaction is just one more step away, yet each step taken toward revenge only tightens the invisible bonds. The pursuit is endless, a labyrinth without walls, where every path circles back to the same restless energy you hoped to release. And yet within this subtle unraveling lies a hidden lesson, a quiet invitation to look more deeply. The dissatisfaction, the hollow triumph, the sense of erosion, these are signs that something else, something deeper, is being asked of you. It is a call to recognize that satisfaction is not external, that fulfillment is not found in balance restored through retaliation, but in the mastery of your own attention and energy. The pull toward revenge then becomes a teacher, not a guide. It is a mirror revealing how easily life's energy can be drained when directed toward harm, how delicate the equilibrium of consciousness truly is, and how often the pursuit of justice externally leaves the soul internally impoverished. The tension lingers as it should. It is meant to disturb, to create a niche in awareness that cannot be ignored. You feel the quiet unease of recognition. The satisfaction you imagined is already lost, spent in the pursuit itself. And in that recognition, a doorway opens, small at first, almost imperceptible. What if the energy you believed necessary to punish another could instead be turned inward, transformed into insight, growth, or creation? What if the victory that eluded you externally could be claimed internally, in the mastery of your own mind, body, and spirit? It is here, in the quiet bending of expectation and the subtle collapse of assumed justice, that curiosity awakens. The human psyche, when confronted with this realization, begins to question not only the act of revenge, but the nature of desire, attachment, and the flow of energy itself. The satisfaction you thought would heal is revealed to be a costlier force than the original harm. And it is in seeing this, in feeling the faint hollow echo of wasted energy, that the mind becomes receptive to a higher truth. A truth that will unfold in the next chapter, where the subtle dynamics of energy and life itself reveal the core insight. The secret to reclaiming power without surrendering to darkness. At the heart of the human experience lies a truth so fundamental, so quietly powerful, that it is rarely named, yet it governs the way life unfolds. Energy is the currency of existence. Not money, not status, not fame. True power is the capacity to direct your own vital force, your consciousness, and your attention. Every thought you cultivate, every intention you nurture, every emotion you entertain is a transaction in this hidden economy. When you pursue revenge, when you invest your life force into retaliation, you are effectively spending the most precious currency you have on an illusion. The act of revenge does not return what was lost, it only perpetuates the depletion of your inner resources. This truth is simple in words but profound in practice. To understand it fully requires seeing the mechanics of energy in a way that transcends ordinary perception. When the mind clings to past injuries, it becomes a conduit for self-draining patterns. Time, which is meant to be fluid and expansive, compresses, and the present moment is hijacked by the residue of the past. The body, which houses this consciousness, begins to reflect the subtle imbalances. Tension accumulates, vitality diminishes, and even intuition is clouded. The pursuit of revenge may feel like power, but it is a counterfeit, a shadow of true mastery. What appears as strength externally is, in fact, surrender internally. To grasp the magnitude of this, consider energy not as a metaphor, but as a tangible force that moves through consciousness, shaping reality itself. Every action, whether physical, emotional, or mental, requires energy. When you direct it outward in retaliation, it travels away from your own center, creating an echo of imbalance. The universe, which mirrors the state of your consciousness, responds in kind. The space within your life that could have been filled with creativity, growth, or serenity is instead occupied by tension, obsession, and subtle decay. In this sense, revenge is a form of self-imposed impoverishment, a slow, imperceptible theft of your own power. But here is the revelation that transforms understanding into liberation. Energy is never destroyed, only redirected. The force that would have fueled retaliation can instead be transmuted into clarity, self-mastery, and creation. This is the mystical skill that sages speak of, the ability to witness harm without internalizing it, to observe injustice without letting it dominate your inner terrain. By doing so, you reclaim what was always yours, your focus, your vitality, your alignment with the currents of life that produce real influence and lasting fulfillment. The implications are staggering. When one learns to redirect energy away from revenge, the mind becomes a landscape of possibility rather than a battlefield of grudges. Attention sharpens, insight deepens, and subtle intuition begins to guide decisions. This is not merely philosophical, it is practical. The person who masters the transmutation of energy does not become passive or indifferent. Rather, they become aligned with the subtle forces of cause and effect, able to influence outcomes with precision and grace. Life itself begins to respond differently because the conduit through which energy flows, the self, is no longer obstructed by resentment. There is also a deeper, metaphysical layer to this truth. Energy is not merely personal, it is universal. Your consciousness, your attention, and your emotions interact with the greater currents of reality. When you engage in acts of revenge, you are injecting into the world a frequency of contraction, of resistance, of shadow. This creates ripples that return not just to you, but to the broader field of human experience. Conversely, when energy is transmuted, when focus is maintained on growth, creation, and higher awareness, it contributes to expansion, illumination, and subtle alignment with the unseen forces that govern the unfolding of life. In essence, mastery over revenge is mastery over the flow of reality itself. Yet the path to this mastery is subtle. It is not about moralizing, suppressing emotion, or pretending harm does not matter. It is about seeing the invisible cost of retaliation and choosing consciously to invest in something greater. The mind that once fed on imagined triumph now becomes a garden where energy is cultivated with purpose. Resentment, which once functioned as a drain, becomes a teacher, a signal pointing to the hidden currents that shape experience. In learning to release it, one does not surrender power, one amplifies it, harnessing forces that are otherwise lost in the cycle of revenge. The ultimate insight is this: your life force is sacred. It is the medium through which your consciousness interacts with the universe. To spend it on harm, even in the name of justice, is to cheat yourself of the true possibilities of existence. Real power lies in restraint, in clarity, in the conscious direction of energy toward outcomes that expand rather than contract. The moment you understand this, the framework of life shifts. You see that nothing external, no betrayal, no insult, no injustice, has the authority to diminish your inner wealth. It is yours to govern, and through governance, to transform not only yourself, but the very reality you inhabit. In practical terms, this means observing the impulses that arise, feeling the energy behind them, and consciously choosing the path of transmutation. It means turning the desire for revenge into insight, the irritation into focus, the lingering pain into growth. And as this practice deepens, subtle phenomena begin to appear: clarity in decision-making, synchronicities in events, a quiet power in presence, and an inexplicable alignment with the deeper currents of reality. These are the rewards of mastery, the evidence that energy is true currency, and that how it is spent determines the quality of your life, the depth of your freedom, and the reach of your influence. This is the core insight, the revelation at the center of the entire journey. Revenge is not a path to justice, but a siphon of life force. Mastery over energy, over attention, over the subtle currents of consciousness, is the true victory. To reclaim your energy is to reclaim yourself, to align with the invisible architecture of reality, and to awaken the dormant power that exists within all who choose to observe, release, and transform. If you have ever felt the sting of betrayal, the sharp edge of a slight that seemed undeserved, the simmering fire of anger that refuses to subside, you are not alone. These experiences are woven into the fabric of the human condition, yet they are also profoundly personal. It is in the quiet moments, when the world seems still and the mind replays memories with painful clarity, that we confront the part of ourselves that thirsts for justice, that aches for recognition, that quietly hopes for a moment of satisfaction that might never come. This is the mirror that revenge holds up to the soul. It shows not only the face of another, but more importantly, the reflection of the inner turbulence we carry, often unacknowledged. The truth is intimate and often unsettling. The desire for retaliation is rarely about the other person. It is about the fragments of ourselves that we have allowed to remain unhealed, the parts that have absorbed injury and shame, the corners of consciousness that have not yet been reclaimed. When you dwell on revenge, you give those fragments space to expand, to grow, to dominate the narrative of your life. You are feeding a shadow with your attention, letting it write the script of your own experience, while the original wound, the external event, has long passed. In other words, the enemy you think you are confronting is often not outside of you at all. It is inside, quietly shaping your thoughts, your moods, and your energy. I have felt this myself. I have allowed the desire to repay perceived wrongs to cloud my judgment, to create sleepless nights, restless energy, and a sense of heaviness that could not be lifted by anything external. And only when I stopped, when I observed the way this desire was consuming me, did I begin to see the deeper truth. The pursuit of revenge is a mirror, revealing the parts of the self that are holding on to pain unnecessarily. It is a reflection of unclaimed energy, attention, and life force. When this reflection is understood, it stops being a trap and becomes a guide, pointing toward liberation. Recognizing this is not easy. It requires courage to look honestly at the ways in which anger, resentment, and desire for retaliation have shaped your actions, your emotions, and even your perceptions. But within this recognition lies a profound intimacy with yourself. You begin to see that you have been giving away what was never theirs to take: your energy, your clarity, your inner calm. The process of acknowledging this is both painful and freeing. It is painful because you confront the subtle self-betrayal, the quiet erosion of your own vitality. And it is freeing because you realize that the power to change, to reclaim, to redirect has always been within your grasp. This is the point where the human experience intersects with the mystical, the recognition that what seems like external injustice is a catalyst for internal awakening. The mirror of revenge, when faced fully, reflects not weakness, but opportunity. It shows the contours of your own consciousness, the boundaries of your energy, the spaces where life force has been allowed to leak. And when you choose to reclaim what was quietly surrendered, the change is tangible. You begin to feel a subtle lightness, a quiet power in presence, a deepening intimacy with the self that was once overshadowed by resentment. It is in these intimate moments, in the recognition of your own vulnerabilities and your own power, that true mastery begins. The fire that once burned toward another is transformed into a steady flame of awareness, of insight, of clarity. You begin to understand that life is not measured by the victories over others, but by the reclamation of your own inner territory. The subtle shifts in energy, the release of attachment to external validation, the conscious choice to invest in yourself rather than retaliation, these are the moments where the soul awakens. And perhaps most importantly, this connection is human. You are not being asked to transcend emotion or to deny the reality of harm done. Rather, you are invited to see harm as a reflection, to recognize its echo within, and to respond with conscious alignment instead of reaction. In this way, the mirror of the soul becomes not a source of torment, but a source of guidance. It shows you where your energy has been lost, where your focus has wandered, and how you can reclaim what is rightfully yours. Not revenge, but sovereignty over your own being. In seeing this, you begin to feel a profound intimacy with life itself. You realize that every moment, every choice, every subtle redirection of energy is a step toward mastery, toward wholeness, toward a presence that is unshakable by the actions of others. And in that presence you find the quiet thrill of sovereignty, the deep satisfaction of reclaiming what is yours, and the luminous recognition that true freedom is not obtained by punishing others, but by tending the garden of your own consciousness with care, wisdom, and attention. Now, imagine a different path. Instead of following the familiar tug toward revenge, toward the imagined justice that feels so urgent, what if you chose to turn inward? What if, in that moment when anger or resentment rises, you did not act upon it, but simply observed it? To many, this may feel like weakness or surrender, but in truth, it is the first step toward profound mastery, the beginning of a subtle alchemy that transforms what was once destructive into a force of creation. This is not about denial or repression. It is about conscious choice, about observing the currents of your own mind and redirecting them with awareness and intention. The alchemy begins with recognition. Feel the tension in your body, the heat in your chest, the restless energy moving through your limbs. This is the force that would have been spent on retaliation, and it is also the force that can be reclaimed. To observe it fully is to stop giving it away, to stop surrendering your energy to the external world. Every surge of anger, every whispered plan for revenge is a signal, a message from within, pointing to where your energy is being wasted, where your attention is being misdirected, where the shadow has quietly taken root. By noticing it, naming it, and allowing it to exist without acting upon it, you begin the process of transmutation. Transmutation is the mystical art of turning shadow into light, of converting energy that would consume you into energy that empowers you. It is the same principle that alchemists spoke of, only applied to the human soul. The desire for revenge, once seen as toxic and draining, becomes a teacher, a mirror, a map for the cultivation of inner power. You learn to redirect your attention toward creation rather than destruction, toward growth rather than decay. In doing so, the energy you once thought lost to resentment is transformed into clarity, focus, and alignment with forces that serve you rather than diminish you. This practice requires discipline and subtlety. It is not a single act, but a continual choice, repeated in moments both large and small. When someone offends you, you feel the familiar pull toward retaliation, but instead of following it, you turn inward. When the memory of a slight resurfaces, you acknowledge the sting, feel it, and then release it consciously, allowing it to dissolve rather than fester. Over time, these repeated acts of conscious release begin to rewire the flow of energy within your mind, your body, and even your life. What was once an automatic drain becomes a reservoir of power. And here is the most profound aspect. As you cultivate this skill, subtle changes begin to appear in the world around you. Your relationships shift, not because others have changed, but because your energy is no longer fueling conflict. Opportunities appear with greater clarity, intuition sharpens, and the currents of life begin to flow in alignment with your intentions rather than your resentments. This is the hidden reward of the alchemy of release. The world begins to respond to the mastery of your own consciousness. This is also a call to presence. The act of releasing is not an abstract philosophical idea, it is deeply practical. To engage fully with life, to act with precision and insight, you must have your energy fully available. Resentment, anger, and the desire for revenge act as silent thieves, siphoning off your vitality, clouding judgment, and distorting perception. By practicing conscious release, you reclaim this vital currency and, in doing so, awaken to the power that has always been within you, but often hidden beneath the weight of unresolved energy. You may notice that this process is not linear. Some days, old desires for revenge may resurface with a sudden intensity. This is not failure, it is part of the process. The key is to continue observing, continuing to redirect, continuing to reclaim. Each act of conscious release strengthens the ability to maintain alignment with your own inner currents, gradually transforming what once seemed like inevitable suffering into mastery, insight, and subtle power. The alchemy of release is not just about healing, it is about awakening. It is the process of turning what would have consumed you into a force that elevates you, that clarifies your mind, that sharpens your intuition, and that allows you to step into life fully, consciously, and unshakably. This is the moment where the mystical becomes practical, where philosophy becomes lived experience, and where the shadow that once threatened to dominate your existence is quietly transformed into light, insight, and sovereignty over your own being. In choosing this path, you take the first step into a new way of living, a way in which energy is no longer spent on illusions of justice, but invested in the cultivation of self-mastery, clarity, and alignment with the deeper currents of reality. The transformation is subtle, yet profound, and its effects ripple outward, unseen yet tangible, reshaping not only your own life, but your relationship to the world. In the quiet that follows the release, a subtle transformation unfolds. The fire that once burned within you, demanding retaliation, fades into something almost imperceptible, yet profoundly luminous. The tension, the obsession, the restless energy that consumed so much of your attention now dissolves, leaving a space that feels lighter, deeper, and more expansive than you have experienced in years. In this silence, you discover a truth that cannot be taught, cannot be observed from the outside, it must be lived. The universe does not reward acts of revenge, nor does it mirror the satisfaction you imagined. It responds instead to alignment, presence, and the conscious stewardship of your own energy. What remains is clarity, focus, and a quiet power that cannot be disturbed. The moments that once felt heavy with resentment now carry a gentle weightlessness, a sense of sovereignty over your own being. You begin to notice the subtle shifts in perception. Decisions feel sharper, thoughts move with precision, and intuition flows like a current beneath everything you do. Life is no longer a battleground where you expend your energy on external validation or imagined justice. Instead, it becomes a field of possibility, a mirror reflecting the mastery you have quietly cultivated within. This is the invisible victory, the triumph that is unseen by others but profoundly felt by the self. It is not the kind of victory that can be announced or displayed, for it exists in the realm of consciousness, in the currents of energy that shape reality in ways subtle yet undeniable. The person who seeks revenge believes they are pursuing closure. Yet the one who masters release knows that true closure has always resided within, waiting to be claimed through awareness, attention, and choice. And here lies the final insight. The shadow that once threatened to dominate your existence is now transformed. What was once a source of internal torment has become a guide, a teacher, and ultimately, a mirror of your own power. You see that mastery is not about defeating others, but about reclaiming yourself. You understand that the true measure of strength is the ability to observe without reacting, to feel without surrendering, and to release without losing presence. In this subtle, profound way, life itself becomes an ally, and the currents of existence flow in quiet alignment with your consciousness. As the light of this awareness settles within, you sense the resonance of something far greater than yourself. The energy that was once wasted in retaliation now hums in quiet harmony, creating a field of possibility where insight, creativity, and growth flourish. You feel a gentle yet undeniable certainty. The self, when fully present, is invincible. No external harm, no betrayal, no injustice can touch it. The victory is invisible yet complete because it exists in the reclamation of what is eternally yours, your energy, your clarity, your presence, and your soul. In this final sacred moment, you recognize that the journey has been both external and internal. The pain, the desire, the fire, they were never meant to be weapons against others. They were signals guiding you toward the mastery of your own consciousness, the stewardship of your own energy, and the awakening of a power that is subtle, quiet, and profound. And so, with the shadow transformed, the mind still, and the spirit luminous, you step forward into life, carrying an invisible victory that will shape not only your own reality, but the unseen currents that ripple through the universe itself. This is the conclusion that does not end, the awareness that lingers, the quiet knowing that transforms perception, the invisible triumph that leaves the soul unshakable, untouchable, and free. You have faced the shadow, observed it, and transcended it. And in that act, in that subtle reclaiming of energy and presence, you have achieved what many seek but few ever recognize. Liberation not through conquest, but through mastery of the self.